Hello everyone and my dear subscribers. This August 16th update, I think there is a lot of things coming for the global version, NA, EU, and the SA version. And I just wanted to talk about some of the things real quick. There's a con rate coming out. There's gonna be more cards dropping. Chaos dungeons are changed. They're 25 times fast. They're 25% faster than before. And Guardian runs only one run per day. Male warrior class body model is going to change. It's going to, I think it's at least like 3 to 4 inches taller. What else? Oh, balance patch. Reworks, balance patch. And the Mokoko Express. The Mokoko Express is supposed to be previously known as Hyper Express, but Mokoko Express it's only a bigger express. You can use it for classes that are below 1540. That was the case for KR. I don't know if that's going to be the case for the global version, but I think it is. It's going to be, you'll be able to use it on classes below 1540. It gives you level 8 gems when you reach a certain eye level. Honing buffs, 5x3 free engravings. So basically when you make a brand new character, you can start from 14-15 immediately with relic gear. You don't have to farm Varkis and Vulcan anymore. And from my experience, it took me about 1.5 hours with the existing mats to get it to 1490. And then I started doing Brawl Gate 1 and 2 about 2 hours after. With the gems, with the Hyper Express, it was a good experience. So I think if you're a new player or a player that's planning to come back to the game, I think this might be the best time to come back, actually. They're making lots of good changes. It's kind of funny to me how reducing content in the game can be actually a better thing, but I guess it is. So with this very big event coming up, I kind of wanted to make a class recommendation video. Not a tier list, a class recommendation video to maybe help you choose a class you want to use your Express on. So before choosing class you want to use your Express on, I just wanted to give you what you can expect at endgame or when the gears are min-maxed, what you can expect, what kind of gameplay, what kind of style. And I did want to give you a little bit of playstyle and like performance you can expect. For me, when I'm playing Lost Ark, only competition in Lost Ark is basically getting into the MVP screen. If you're a DPS class, like who does more damage? There's no really PvP content in this game, so it's all PvE, raids between 4 members or 8 members. And at the end of the day, what you win is some gold and MVP screen. And it's the only way to check how good your class is performing or how good you're doing. You know, by looking at that percentage, like 40% Crow Fighter or 36% Upright, or so on and so on. So, with that in mind, I kind of wanted to explain of the classes so you can have easier time choosing your class. There are 2 phases in Lost Ark raiding, I think, for me. The first phase is after the release date of a raid, up to about 1 month, where people are still getting used to the raids, getting used to the patterns. And then after about 1 month, after a certain amount of clears, you sort of learn the raid. And this is where most of the OP classes are kind of decided. Because usually for procs, sustained damage classes tend to do pretty well. Well, after about a month, when people get used to all the mechanics of the bosses, patterns, certain damage reduction phases or gimmicks, burst damage classes usually tend to perform pretty well here after a few months, right? Because you become overgeared with soft reset or whatever, you become overgeared and then Lost Ark raids are designed so it phases every once in a while. After certain bars or after some time, There are phases, cutscenes, gimmicks, where you kind of have to hold your DPS or build identity for a burst window, and then after that burst window, a few seconds later, the boss goes into next mechanic or next phase. There isn't that much time for actual combat in Lost Ark raids. Majority of them are spent doing mechanics. So, with that in mind, here are some of my class recommendations. And before I get into it real quick, the Super Mokoko Express holding support, this is not 1490 anymore. It was, and I think they changed it. 1540, level 7 gems. I think they also upgraded this to level 8 gems. And I think that's 4 level 8 gems. Support at 1540. Right, so it's not that big of an investment required. So don't be afraid to try some classes that you think can be hard. Right, worst case scenario, you get yourself a pretty decent level gold earner, and main swapping is always punishing in Lost Ark, but it won't be as punishing. So with this chance, the Super Mokoko Express, I would be a little adventurous and try a class that you were kind of scared to touch because of the difficulty of the class. Right. So let's get on to high risk and high return classes. I already explained about this here. Igniter Sorceress. It's a mage class who casts gigantic meteors at the enemy. I think almost everyone knows pros of this sorceress is very big burst. Cons, it's slow. I don't think it's very good in utility, and it's pretty crit dependent. The class sorceress has been nerfed a few times and seems to be in a pretty good spot right now. Seems to be pretty safe from further nerfs. Move on to next class, Surge Deathblade. I think the biggest pros of playing Surge Deathblade is you kind of need only one big damage gem, like one level 10 gem on Surge, to see some big numbers and to compete with other classes in a raid. By compete, I mean getting on the MVP screen, right? So the pros would be big numbers. It's stylish. The Dark Axle. It's like there's like 1 or 2 classes that can jump over the boss to the back. And I think one of the biggest pros of Surge Deathblade is that it has immunity, push immunity in Surge. So your Surge is safe from getting disturbed by bosses' patterns. I really think this is one of the biggest cons. Like I said, why did I say cons again? Pros of playing Surge Blade. The cons would be entropy. You have to back attack, and it's very crit dependent. A lot of Surge Blades that come to my streams, my chat, Twitch stream, the biggest thing that stresses them out is critting the Surge. Yeah, many people would say Deathblade is a difficult class because it's the only class that works on stacks. There's really no faster way to generate the stacks or this identity. But the class still has goated ceiling, and it's also got good party buff as well. The next class I recommend as a high risk, high return class is Punisher Slayer. It's a female berserker, a female warrior with a big sword. Pros, one of the highest burst damage class in the game at this point. The cons would be its entropy, and I can't really think of lots of cons. I guess managing identity. This goes the same for all the high risk, high return classes, by the way. Managing identity. If you use up your identity for a burst, but the boss either teleports or goes into mechanics or goes into damage reduction phase, then you can kiss your big DPS goodbye. But that's a lot of classes do suffer from that. Also, Punisher Slayer has a lot of utility like weak point and stagger in its main DPS skills. So if you used any of your DPS skill outside of your burst hype cycle, not hype, identity, berserk cycle, it could result in a messed up skill cycle, and result in DPS loss. But that goes the same for almost every other class. Alright, next let's move on to my other category, MVP machine, if played right. Most classes in Lost are capable of MVPing if played right, with high uptime and raid knowledge. But these classes, the ones I'm about to mention, would probably beat the others considering equal skills. And the first one that comes to my mind is Energy Overflow Soulfist. It's a very fast Energy Overflow Soulfist. It's a very fast-paced melee fighter class, which resembles kind of Goku from DBZ. The pros, undeniably highest DPS potential if you can align all your hypes, hype 3s with the supports buffs. It's very fast-paced. It's very mobile. It's got a lot of stagger, and a lot of tools. Good counter too. The cons would be it's got very long learning curve. By long learning curve, I mean it takes a while for you to learn the raids and to know when to use your hype 3, like know how to manage your hype and dominion. So every new raid when it comes out, it requires time and experience to optimize your identity management. So it might take you a while for you to start appearing on the MVP screen as cool fighter, but once you learn the raids, I can almost guarantee you'll make it to MVP screen no matter what. Also, Empress Arcana. It's a mage class which requires both mechanical skills and RNG, and it also needs some fast decision making. Biggest pros is its one of the highest DPS potential class. Actually, its highest DPS potential class with some lucky card draws. You get this from Identity. The cons would be its lowest health defense coefficients, and you have to memorize the effects of the cards, and you do have to adjust your skill cycle depending on what kind of cards you draw from the Identity. It used to have a very low floor, but with the recent balance changes, by recent I mean couple of months, it's been almost a year. With one of the balance patches, the floor was raised up pretty high actually, and it's a very good class. Good synergy as well, preferred synergy as well, crit synergy. And I updated this recently on my list. And Artine Technique Machinist, AT Scouter. It's a non-transformation version of Machinist. And the pros of it will be lots of small numbers. It's very quick pace, and it's got decently range skills. The cons would be it needs way more gems than Legacy Machinist, which is 2. You need more than 2. And it's run on battery, not mana, so you can't use Nightmare. And not using mana also means that your support's mana buff does not affect your battery. Also, a micromanagement of the drone. This could also be a pro, I think, for people who like to test their skills. And it's way squishier than Legacy. There's still not that many AT Scouters in the game. I was recently able to play with an AT Scouter, in the latest dungeon, which is Valdis Ivory Tower, on my Soulfist. And my Soulfist usually gets Crow Fighters in that raid. But this Auditine Tech Machinist, which was 10 gear scores below me, was actually able to stole a couple gates, 1 or 2 gates of Crow Fighter over my Soulfist. So I think AT Scouter is an hidden gem, basically. Okay, next, low risk, high return class, aka broken class. One of the class is Pinnacle Glavier. It's one of the easiest mid-range back attack class, entropy class. Um, the pros would be it's the one and only goated synergy, 8% damage buff if you crit on your party members too. So this happened with recent care balance patch. And it has a lot of utility. It's got a lot of weak point, maybe not as much stagger, but it has 2 counters, a lot of weak point, and it also has parry for some survivability. And the damage is really high. Before, if Glavier was more of a sustained damage class using Nightmare build, now it's more on the burst side with a red stance. Cons was, I can't think of one. It was recently, a few days ago. It was nerfed, but it's still good. It was nerfed by 5%, but it's still doing good. Next low risk high return class would be Death Strike Sharpshooter. It's a cool bow and arrow class. I use my super Mokoko Express on a Death Strike Sharpshooter, and I'm having so much fun playing Death Strike Sharpshooter. This is like Death Strike Sharpshooter feels like I play a lot of entropy classes, by the way. Destroyer, Glavier, Striker. I play a lot of entropy classes, and then whenever I also play Deadeye, Enhanced Weapon Deadeye. So after playing all those classes, when I start playing Death Strike Sharpshooter, it feels like a cold beer, like a refreshment, a cold beer after a hard day of work. I feel very superior when I'm just doing damage from long range, while other entropy melee classes are trying to chase the back. The cons would be it has almost no immunity, so you would have to dodge every single boss's attack. But that's a skill issue, right? Just get good. And the next low risk high return class would be Robust Sophist. You can see the biggest single number in the game was Spare Palm. Pros, biggest single damage number, Spare Palm. And it's not... You might think Soulfist is a risk class because of Spare Palm landing or critting, but Robust Soulfist damage does not completely rely on Spare Palm anymore. It actually has a lot to do with the cycles. Your skills, basically, the skill cycles. And hype management on Robust Soulfist is not that hard. You just have to remember to not use any skills outside of your hype. And that's about it. Cons, your skills would get locked out for 11 to 12 seconds after identity use, hype use. So if you ever encounter like a mechanic, stagger, or weak point, then if you're locked out, you can't really do anything. So you would have to remember when those mechanics, stagger or weak point mechanics, will come out and save your hype for that. But that's about it. Also, I just added Gun Lancer yesterday onto my list. The Lancer skills, Red Gun Lancer skills, was buffed by approximately 9 point something percent, and blue skills, general skills, was recently buffed by 8 point something percent, 8.6 or around there. And I recently played against a Gunlancer, not against with, but against a Gunlancer in a Guardian raid, and the Gunlancer was 1650 and my Destroyer was 1642.5. But the Gunlancer did beat me in damage. Yes, it did. Gunlancer is very strong DPS now. It's got damage, it has stagger, it's tanky survivability, and has immunity for main DPS skills, and it's party play friendly. Do not complain that you have to land head attacks in order to be strong, because that's the same case for almost every entropy class, okay? So if you're not a hitmaster, landing back attack or head attack is almost the same for every other entropy class. Just thank Smilegate for giving you immunity for main DPS skills, right? The cons would be, I don't know, backdash. I think you get used to backdash after a while, but yeah. Backdash and red, yeah, still has the back attack. With that, let's move on to low risk mid return class. By low risk mid return, I mean high floor class. I think Aeromancer is one of the representative high floor class. It's very easy to play. It has very good synergy and utility. Stagger, maybe not as many weak points, but it's got really good stagger. And it's cute. Cons would be it has no MVP chance against good. Let me accentuate this again. It has no MVP chance against good high risk, high return, or MVP machine, or low risk, high return class players. Do you get what I'm saying? So as long as you have high uptime, you probably have good chance at MVP against some bad players. Summoner. Master Summoner, I actually think it's on the mid-high risk, mid-high return side. It's not... It's a little bit higher than this. Pros, you don't need that many DPS gems. And the cons would be, it's kind of stationary. A lot of animation locks. And high spacebar cooldown. The spacebar cooldown is very long. And you kind of need some special protection from the support. Not what I mean by special is since you're animation locked and when you're using skills, you might need some supports, shields, or immunity when you're casting the skills. Communication overflow. People might say it's a newbie friendly class, but I don't think it's a newbie friendly class. I think it's more of a raid progression friendly class. The reason why I say that is because of the cons. In order for you to compete against other, let's call it OP classes. In order for you to compete against other OP classes, you're gonna need some juiced gems later, and you need 7 damage gems. And if you're competing for like the end gear competition, you need all of them at level 10s. So yes, I don't think it's very newbie friendly. I think it's just prop friendly. And then this I would, and classes I do not recommend. I actually don't want to talk about it, but I kind of have to say it. I do not recommend Reaper. None of the current Reaper players are happy right now. Why do you want to stress playing Lost Ark when you can have fun with other classes? And the main reason why Reapers are unhappy is because The reward for back attacking, the damage basically, is pretty mid. It's not up there with other high MVP classes. At the same time, it's kind of squishy. And it has no utility almost. Like, the counter is really good, but stagger and weak point is not that great. Well, stagger on Hunger Reaper or Thirst Reaper is actually pretty decent, but the damage is not all there on Hunger Reaper. Another class I do not recommend is Deathblow Striker. Deathblow Striker used to be one of the most popular class because it had really high burst damage. But the recent patches and recent buffs on Hitmasters and nerfs on Entropy kind of made Striker not all the way up there with DPS. It still got good DPS. But now it became like a DPS or it's got no tools class. Deathblow Strikers can't do raid gimmicks. It's very difficult. A lot of weak point, when you have to use weak point, the boss is usually in DR, damage reduction. So using your Lightning Whisper and LTS for either weak point or stagger basically means you're using your main DPS skill for DR phase. And another example I can give you, since this raid is coming up pretty soon, in Akan raid, there is a certain mechanic where you have to stagger statues. And if you don't have any orbs saved up for statues, you can't generate any orbs on these statues. So you end up having to rely on others to stagger them for you. The classes that are not mentioned on here, like Berserkers, Gunslingers, or any other class, Legacy Scouters, Shadow Hunters, or they're all good. They're all fine. They perform really well. The reason why I don't mention them is because I think 3 categories is enough. I don't want to make 50 different categories explaining low risk, high return, low risk, mid return, mid low risk, mid high return. I just don't want to make a bunch of different categories. So I'll stop at here. There's other classes that are performing really well, and just because your class is not mentioned on here doesn't mean it's bad. It's basically up to you. I'm pretty sure you're grown up. This game is rated mature. You can make some choices for yourself. Just wanted to give you a little heads up before choosing your class. All right. Oh, and before this kind of contradicts what I've been saying all along, but chasing meta in Lost Ark is it's a lot of investment, right? Chasing after meta, it's a lot of investment. And if it's overperforming, eventually the class gets nerfed. And if a class is underperforming, eventually a class gets buffed, right? So it's kind of pointless to choose meta. Just look at the playstyle and see what kind of class it is. If it's a low risk, high return. If a class looks like it should be low risk, high risk, high return class, then small gate will eventually make it rewarding if it's underwhelming. See what I'm trying to get at? Anyways, that ends my class recommendation video. Hope this is helpful for you guys. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.